Hey, Trevor Walsh here, Talks with Trevor. Please go ahead and subscribe to my channel, all of my channels, if you want to keep up with my content I deliver and see anything that's new and exciting or anything I publish. I'm on YouTube, BitChute, and Rumble. All three of those are all down below, right down below in the body of this video. All the links so you can subscribe. You can also follow me on Parler, on Facebook, Instagram, and I don't know, whatever else I'm on. Anyways, the main ones are Parler and MeWe are the main ones, and then Facebook, of course, and Rumble, YouTube, and BitChute are my video platforms I use for making videos. YouTube, of course, is the one I'd love to be able to use all the time, but we can't because they censor everything. So if they don't like what you're saying and they don't agree with it, they use subjective truth and they will just censor you because you have to believe what they believe, even if it's not true. So if tomorrow Twitter and Facebook came out with the idea that we're living on a flat planet and you said, hey, I believe it's round, they would ban you or they would not share your posts, and that's too bad because people have bled and died in our country to have a freedom of speech and a freedom of thought and tolerance, and we've become a country that's completely divided where people just are not tolerant of each other and are not willing to look at both sides and critically think. Shut off the mainstream media, that's CNN, MSNBC, Fox News, all of them. Just look at the actual facts and make your own decision. Too many sheeple, not enough real sheep and real shepherds and people that care about each other that are telling the truth. So let's look at some incredible information about the coronavirus. This is the first thing I'm going to show you right now is a couple of people talking about the latest study that was done with the Marines, and also the use of masks, and then we will go on to talk a little bit about T-cell immunity and stuff like that, and a little bit about virology and epidemiology and stuff like that, to answer some questions that some people have posed to me, so you have a little better understanding of how this all works. So let's check out this first little clip.
Study conducted by the Icahn School of Medicine at Mount Sinai enlisted active duty U.S. Marines to see if lockdown conditions would keep them from getting sick. All recruits wore double-layered cloth masks at all times, practiced social distancing, were not allowed to leave campus, cleaned their rooms daily, sanitized bathrooms, and ate pre-plated meals in a dining hall that was cleaned with bleach. Even with all that, the study found those Marines had a higher infection rate than those who didn't do all that. Here now is Phil Kerpen, president of the Committee to Unleash Prosperity, and Dr. Ramin Asqui, cardiologist, CEO of Foxhall Cardiology in D.C. Phil, by now our leaders know that these mitigation measures, which have severe consequences on children, families, businesses, don't really work. So why do they keep pushing them?
Well, it's a very difficult thing for a politician or a public health official, for that matter, Laura, to say there's not much we can do. This virus is out there. It's going to spread. Take reasonable precautions to the extent you can, especially if you're in a vulnerable group. And that's the best we can do right now. We've got vaccines on the way. We're improving our treatments. But sorry, that's the best we can do. They don't want to ever say that. They want to say, I've got it. I've got this under control. We're going to lock this down. We're going to close this. We're going to say they want to look like they've got a handle on the situation. They want to feel like they're in control. And that's why, unfortunately, that psychological need is leading them to repeat the very same mistakes we had in the spring with extremely costly, disruptive policies that don't actually have any additional benefit over those reasonable precautions.
Well, I think Dr. Asqui, Phil is being more charitable in this endeavor than, in this inquiry, I should say, than I am. I see Gretchen Whitmer And to me, she seems like perversely enjoying this. I'm sorry. She's not on camera. She's glowing. She's had her hair and makeup. She looks fantastic. And meanwhile, the people are suffering so much in this situation in Michigan. The people of Michigan, and they voted for this. They voted for lockdowns, I guess.
Well, you know, the whole idea of lockdowns obviously was to suppress viral spread, but it's come at a huge social and economic cost. And what we have to understand from that Icahn School of Medicine study that you showed, beautifully done, and with very thorough testing, is that social distancing doesn't work, quarantining doesn't work, masks don't work. This is really settled science. And those in the media and those in the public who want to cling to those illusions, they're fooling themselves and they're hurting society. We have to be prudent. I think Mel's exactly correct. If you're in a vulnerable group or if you're sick, you quarantine. Society has to go on. Society isn't just COVID. There's so many other things. There are children not going to school. There are people who are missing out on health screenings. There are kids not getting immunizations. This has to stop. This is anti-science.
Yeah, Fairfax County schools, one of the biggest school districts in the United States, closed for in-person learning. Maryland schools, Montgomery County, closed. Private schools closing. Parochial schools closing. New Jersey closing. This is a disaster, and parents have got to get engaged. But Laura, that's driven
by the teachers' unions. The teachers' unions are the ones shutting this down.
But the local health officials are also driving this shutdowns, and kids are being hurt. Have you noticed
that since the election, the New York Times and the Washington Post both suddenly discovered that schools are not high-risk settings and that the science is in favor of schools being open?
They're still shutting them down.
They've both had articles to that effect over the last week, although it's very hard to switch things around when you've scared teachers and parents all summer long. And, you know, they've sort of walked us into this situation where all of the fear-mongering took over, and you can't correct it. You can't turn it off, unfortunately.
Correct.
I had a school administrator today say to me, I don't know what to tell my teachers, 20% of them or so, they won't come back. And I don't know, I mean, is there a resource? What can we show them to get? By the way, Dr. Osby, real quick, 36 states now are in this, varying stage of mask mandates. Pennsylvania announced its new COVID rules, wearing a mask in your own house. Speaking of reaching into your home and controlling your behavior. What about this? Where's the rest of the medical community in smacking back at this with the masks mandates, despite the study that we just talked about?
I don't know where they are. I think they're shockingly passive. But remember, in the Nazi era, 97% of physicians joined the Nazi Party. I think all too often they go along to get along. I think they're unwilling to stand by the clear science that shows, and that Icahn School of Medicine studies was brilliantly done. Masks don't work. We've known this before. This is not going to help. This is an oral fecal spread virus. Oxford has shown this. We need to act accordingly, and soon, while we still have an economy to act on.
Yeah, we're not saying that we're not saying that doctors are Nazis. We're saying like,
no, not at all.
Yeah, you're making a point.
But I think they need to have the courage of their scientific convictions, and they don't right now. They need to stand up for what's right.
There are a lot of incredible medical professionals that I think are also scared. They're scared of losing their jobs. Phil and Dr. Osby, thank you so much.
Okay, I hope you enjoyed that, and I hope it opened your eyes a little bit about, it's not so much, that it was on Laura Ingram's show. I only watched literally a couple hours of any type of television media all week. I mean, I just don't watch any of the mainstream media outlets, really. I enjoy Laura Ingraham because she brings on great guests that really are highly regarded, and some of the best scientists and doctors in the world for her views. She's very much into liberty, and she leans towards a libertarian viewpoint where you have personal liberty and we should fight for our personal liberty, and I enjoy that because I'm a libertarian with conservative values, and I think she's pretty bang on with most things she says. She's not always right, and I'm not a Fox News supporter. I mean, Fox News is no better than CNN, MSNBC at this point. But I do like her two guests that she had on, and I think we should really take a lot from them. a couple of the top doctors in the world, and we should be listening to them. Unless you have 16 to 20 years of medical education under your belt, a little less armchair yapping on Facebook, a little bit more humbling and listening would help all of us. Like a lot of us have said for decades, you know, to all these guys, usually it's guys that love to be the armchair experts in football and tell the coach, do this, do that, do this, do that, as they make, you know, $45,000 a year, you know, working at their job. Until you're the coach of an NFL team, maybe keep your opinions to yourself, because you're not a coach for a reason. You're probably not good enough. You're probably not smart enough. You probably don't have a high enough IQ, and you probably just don't have the skill set. Instead of fighting that and pretending you're something you're not, just admit it. I am not a brain surgeon. Instead, I look at brain surgeons with 20 to 30 years of education, and I listen and I critically think, and I come up with my own opinions based on hundreds and thousands of scientists. There's now, I believe, 50,000 scientists and doctors that have signed on with the agreement to never ever have another lockdown, because it's destroying our economies and societies all over the world. You can argue with that all you want, but unless you have an education to back it in medicine, in virology or epidemiology or something like that, maybe you should quit talking and start listening. 2 ears, 1 mouth. Use them proportionally. Truth. Truth is not subjective. It is objective. There is truth. Doesn't matter whether you believe in it or not. There is truth. It doesn't need your belief system to exist. In other words, before I open this next clip, which is profound, remember this: gravity as a truth exists without your belief. You can say you don't believe in gravity. You can be an activist against gravity. But if you jump off a skyscraper and you go splat, you will become an instant believer in gravity, whether you like it or not. Same goes with God. Same goes with any type of truth. There is absolute truth. There is objective truth. There's no way around it. You can pretend to identify as anything you want, be anything you want, make up all this stuff and get rid of all truths in your life. But that doesn't make truth go away. There is truth. The next piece I'm going to introduce might be, I've been following this virus since January. I've been doing vlogs on multiple channels. I've interviewed people. I've studied it from looking at all the main Ivy League schools and everything since January, before anyone was talking about it. Looking at the original predictions, they were predicting about 180 million deaths globally from this epidemic. They were predicting 5.5 billion with a B, billion people infected from this disease. 5.5 billion people infected. At the time, they had a CFR, case fatality rate, they predicted of about 3.4%. That's what they were looking at in January. That would equate to about 180 million people dead. Well, right now, I think we all know we're nowhere close to that. In the United States, we're at about 260,000 people dead. Every death counts. Every death is a tragedy. Whether it's my mom, your sister, brother, or friend, every death counts. Death is not natural. It's not part of God's plan. God's original creation didn't have death until we screwed it up. We did. I did. We did. We're sinners. We're depraved. We destroyed God's original creation. He didn't do it. We did it. We need to own it. Luckily, He came and died for us on the cross and gave us a way to atone, to be atoned for. My point is this. This next clip is profound. Out of everything I've published, all the content I've delivered, out of everything I've read and studied, and I've spent hundreds and hundreds of hours listening to the top doctors and scientists in the world from all different viewpoints, for masks, against masks, for lockdowns, against them, to determine my own opinion based on science and stats and data. Not just someone on Facebook who barely got through high school or has a degree in, philosophy, trying to tell me how epidemiology works when he has no idea how a cell works. So I've done the actual homework, and here's what I've come to. This next little clip should take your breath away. If you are someone that doesn't believe in God, and you don't believe in a personal creator, intelligent design, when you watch this next clip, it should take your breath away. It should drop you to your knees and humble you and have you asking God to soften your heart and open your eyes and remove the scales from your eyes. Here's why I say that. It took my breath away. It almost was emotional to watch this. How advanced the human cell is at attacking and defending the body. Our immune system, it's overwhelming. So this is amazing, guys. Watch this next clip. I'll follow up with a little bit of good factual stuff. I'll answer a few questions that have been posed to me about virology and epidemiology and how viruses work and how they're spread and everything like that. Just a couple simple things, nothing crazy, nothing complex. And then I'll leave it at that. So let's go ahead and check out this video. This is really good, and this is something you should share with everyone.
Now, for months, the Ingraham angle has been ahead of the curve when it comes to COVID and the potential mitigation efforts that have followed. From the split science on masks to the damaging effect of lockdowns and their effectiveness on a populace and on this virus, we've challenged the consensus, and time and again, we've been proven right. Now that includes highlighting that the immunity to COVID doesn't hinge on antibodies alone, but that other cells, known as the killer T cells, also play a key role. For questioning the consensus, we were tarred and feathered, essentially, by the media medical cartel, but once again, our independent thinking has been vindicated. The New York Times reporting a new study that found 8 months after infection, most people who have recovered still have enough immune cells to fend off the virus and prevent illness. These cells, including T cells, may persist in the body for a very, very long time to come. Joining me now is Dr. William Grace, oncologist and hematologist, and Alex Berenson, former New York Times reporter, author of Unreported Truths About COVID-19 and Lockdowns, Part 2. Dr. Grace, this has been obvious for months. So why did it take the media and the medical establishment so long to catch up?
There may have been political motives for that, but, we've known that basically of the two components of the immune system, there's the chemical part, that's the antibody, and there's the cellular immune system, which is extremely important. They not only kill the cells, but they store memory cells to know how to redo when re-challenged with the same infection. They know how to fight that infection and do it more efficiently than the first time around. And the good news, Laura, is that the new vaccines produce a greater immunity than the natural infection themselves. So there's a lot of great news here.
And Alex, on this issue of masks and the New York Times reporting on that Danish study that was considered to be so controversial, people didn't even want to talk about it. What should we take away from this?
What we should take away is that masks are basically useless as a protective measure. I mean, there wasn't much data about that before. There had been a very good meta-analysis done several months ago that was published in the CDC journal that suggested that. But this study was randomized. It had several thousand people, and it essentially showed that wearing masks does not protect the wearer at all from the coronavirus, not from the flu. This was done, this spring in Denmark, and it was done with the coronavirus. It was a very, very well-designed study. Frankly, if a drug company had a drug in trials that had this trial result, they would discontinue development of the drug. There's just no evidence that masks protect the wearer. Now, we can discuss this other issue of source control. We can discuss my mask protects you. There's not very good evidence for that, but that's much harder to test in a big randomized trial. But the CDC said last week masks may protect the wearer, and they should just stop saying that. There's no evidence for that.
I mean, Dr. Grace, this is just wild. I mean, you can't go anywhere in the United States without people in masks. You don't know how long they've been wearing them, whether they were, supposed to be disposable and they've been wearing them for a week. But this is mask mandate on steroids now, everywhere, pretty much everywhere.
Yeah, and I agree with Alex. The problem here is there's a big difference between masks. In the hospital, we wear N95 masks and face protection because we're in an environment taking care of COVID patients where the virus is very active and very concentrated. But when you get out into the public, people wear neckwear and fashionable masks, and these have been shown to be less than 1/100th as effective as the N95 mask. The N95 mask is not something you can wear all day. It's an awful thing to have to wear, but we put up with it because of the risks. But what you see out in that are the fashionable things people are wearing now offer very little, if any, protection at all.
No, and Alex, really quickly, like the Twitter scolds are tweeting today saying, "Oh well, we've said it only protects. It's for others, not for you." But so if the virus can't get through to you,
there's not really evidence of that. That's right. Why would you think this works one way and not the other? Now, there's a lot of complicated mechanistic stuff here, but the fact is, the doctor is right. N95s, and they are completely different species, and that's been, you can demonstrate that 100 different ways. But the mask, the cloth mask, or even the surgical mask that the CDC recommends, this Danish study just puts the end to this.
Yeah, well, then they had the Marine. Yeah, we had the Marine quarantine survey as well that showed that Marines who were in the clearest lockdown, they still got it with masks and social distancing. I mean, that was even more, to me, that was even more devastating on both fronts.
That's right.
Let me get into what de Blasio is saying about schools. This was today. He announced that the schools in New York would be closing. Watch.
We do need to close our schools for the coming days. We set a very clear standard, and we need to stick to that standard. Our teams have been talking throughout the morning on exactly what it would take to come back and bring our schools back quickly, and it will be a higher standard. I want that to be clear. We have a stringent health and safety standard right now. We're going to have to raise that up even higher to be able to bring our schools back.
Dr. Grace, there's no science here. This is just wrecking ball to our young people. I am so outraged by this. The testing of the kids, the positivity rate was like 0.23% as of Monday. This is insanity.
And it's also interfering with herd immunity, which is very important in the successful conquering of this virus and returning to normal.
Alex, on schools, you've been such an outspoken critic of these closures. Final thoughts on this?
It's disgusting. It's disgusting. It's punishing children for virus that they are effectively at no risk from. I'm not sure why we're doing this except to placate teachers' unions. And, many jurisdictions now are talking about no schools through at least April. Okay, and some places are saying don't expect schools until fall of 2021.
Oh my God,
already you can see it is just wrong. And
This is child abuse. I mean, it's child abuse, and people voted for this. This is what I don't understand. Parents, if you voted for the Democrats, this is what you voted for. This is absolute insanity. Gentlemen, I don't want to grandstand over you. Thank you, though, so much.